JT Crowley is Talking Books. On this show, you'll hear from emerging talent and seasoned veterans from around the world. They'll give you their take on the writing process and how to create the secret sauce of page-turning deliciousness. Let's get into that magical mixture of the art and science of creativity. Here's JT Crowley, author of The Smart Kids, and your podcast host.
Hello, everybody. I'm JT Crowley, and I'm delighted to have on my show today Vincent D'Souza to talk about his book, Happy People, Happy World. Under the main title, Vincent has put the words Prayers to Heal and the World. It's a smallish book of about 40 pages with prayers and hymns in it, creatively set out in 9 sections, including the introduction and the glossary. Vincent was born in Kampala, Uganda of Indian ethnicity. Soon after, the family moved to Kenya and eventually to the UK, where Vincent went to Highbury Grammar School in London. He then went on to Reading University to read agriculture and agricultural engineering, where he obtained both bachelor and master's degrees. He's lived in several places throughout the world. He's lived not only in the United Kingdom, but after his degrees, he went to Venezuela, where he spent some time. Then he came back, and then he went back to Venezuela. And so he goes all over the place, believe you me, everybody. And then in around 1991, he decided to up sticks and head off to Australia. And that's where he's remained for quite a while, for over 30 years. He now lives in Western Australia, just north of Perth. And so he's led quite an interesting life, and throughout the podcast, I think you'll totally agree with me. So I'm going to invite Vincent onto the show to come and talk to us all about his book. Vincent, come and have a chat.
Good. Do you want me to say it now?
Yeah.
Okay. This book was inspired at a time when my brother was terminal with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I got what is called in the book, the 7 Stations of the Healing Cross.
Yes, I know that one, yes.
Yeah. And that was a way of forgiving yourself and forgiving anybody you may imagine had done anything to you, and then working up to a higher level where you became one with God. Because once you forgive yourself, then you're pure and you go up the scale until you're back to oneness.
Ah.
And
I've got a couple of questions, Vincent, if you don't mind.
Good.
So I'm going to come
Good.
back to what you've just said.
Good.
Vincent, the prayers and hymns in the book, are they your own version? Or are they revised editations? Or are they taken from elsewhere? The reason why I ask is, when I look at chapter 2 in your book, headed up the New Rosary, I can identify with the Hail Mary and the Glory Be, albeit modified versions as to how I know them. But the Lord's Prayer, which most people identify as the Our Father, is very, very different. And I know you put Lord's in brackets. Do you mind if I read this Lord's Prayer out?
No, you may.
Let me read it out to everybody, okay? And then they'll see
Excellent.
what I'm getting at. I'm just going back onto my laptop here, everybody. And so this is what's in the book, everybody. It's on page 3 of Vincent's book. And it's the I Am, in brackets, Lord's Prayer. Beloved Almighty, glorious and holy Creator God of all, immanent in all your creation, I am your child. I am the instrument of your well-being done. I am living on earth as I am one with you in spirit. I am sharing your blessings with all your creation. I am forgiven by all creation in the measures in which I forgive all creation. I am leading all creation away from temptation. I am delivering all creation from the power of the evil one. I am living a life of good conduct, love, truth, peace, and selfless service towards all creation. In accordance with your divine will, under your grace in a perfect way. The Spirit, which I am, is the kingdom, power and glory in eternal, immortal manifestation. All this I am, amen. It's quite a powerful prayer, isn't it? Why this version?
Well, you see, the other prayer, when you say it, it's like you're talking to God who's somewhere else. You know, you're here and you're talking to God somewhere else. Whereas really, when God saw Moses in the desert, and he said, "Who are you? Who shall I tell them send me?" He said, "Tell them I am." Because this I am means I'm everything. And he said, he reiterates that when he says, "I am that I am." And then it says in the Bible, we are made in God's image and likeness. So we are made in God's image and likeness. We are also I am. And we don't pray to God as though God's somewhere else. Because in the early part of the Bible, it says God is in everything. So that's where the thing that we are children of God and we are God's will being done, because, I mean, we have free will. We can choose not to do it.
Oh, yes, yes.
You see?
So,
yeah, that's the reason why this is the Lord's Prayer as an affirmation, because we are doing it together. We are co-creating.
I see now, yes. Because, yes, I understand affirmations. I understand that.
Yeah, it's a very powerful one because it what's the word? Sort of reinforces our beliefs about ourselves.
So there you go, everybody. That's why Vincent put in his book that version, because most of us would have been expecting the Our Father. And yes, I could see the Hail Mary and I could see the Glory Be there, although slightly different. So I thought, I'm going to ask him this one.
I mentioned something about the Hail Mary.
Yes.
Okay, the Hail Mary is important because I agree with the Catholic one, but in the revelation I've got from Jesus through a book called The Way of Mastery, is because we are spirit, the image and likeness of God, having a material experience, we cannot sin. We are just having experiences. There's no right and wrong. So in the Hail Mary, I'm not saying pray for us sinners now. No, pray for us the children of God, which follows from the Our Father. Now until our victory over the illusions of sin, disease, and death. Because sin, disease, and death are just energy changes. We are perfect spirit, complete in every way, experiencing creation and advancing the frontiers of creation.
That's an interesting point of view. Vincent, if I may, I want to dig a little further into your book. And still under the New Rosary section, you talk about the mysteries of the Rosary, the joyful, sorrowful, and glorious, and what they incorporate, enshrine. Why not the luminous mysteries, which touches upon the baptism of the Lord, the wedding at Cana, the proclamation of the kingdom of God, and the call to conversion? And there are others.
Actually,
why just the three?
I'm glad you asked that question, because
So
after we spoke on an earlier occasion, I looked up the Luminous Mysteries. I didn't know. I knew they existed. I didn't know what they were. But you see, what the Luminous Mysteries are doing, they're making out that Christ, or Jesus, Jeshua ben Joseph, is the elevated one, the only Son of God, they say in some of the Catholic prayers. That is not true, because all of us, doesn't matter your race, color, anything, we are children of God. We are God having a material experience, because God is not that lovely Father in the sky, kind-faced and all that. God is, I put it in another book I've got, like the quantum. The physicists talk about quantum physics. In the quantum field, there's infinite possibilities and potential. So that's a good description of God. But the quantum field cannot come and create things. It needs humans like us in this dimension to create things. And that's where we are children of God, created by God to experience creation and advance it.
I agree with you there. Do you know, when I look at your book, Vincent, the chapter that stands out the most for me is chapter 5, The 7 Stations of the Healing Cross.
Yes.
I suppose, and you've already touched upon this, I suppose the Stations of the Cross is more synonymous with the Catholic Church. Why have you put this chapter in your book?
I use the word stations mainly like steps, like in the sense of like you're climbing a hill, okay? And as you reach higher, you're reaching a higher vibration. So when you're in the bottom and you've got guilt and shame or grief or things like, you're in a very low vibration. And that is a vibration of the emotions in creation. This was discovered by a Dr. David Hawkins. Actually, he got knighted before he passed away, yes. And it's a scale that goes from 10 to the power of 0 to 10 to the power of 1,000. Now, people like Jesus, Krishna, Buddha are at 10 to the power of 1,000. And we, because of the vibrations we are holding, are much, much lower. It starts at shame at 10 to the power of 20. I won't go through the details, but at 10 to the power of 200, you got courage, which is 10 to the power of 200. And then it goes geometrically. So love is 10 to the power of 500. Joy is 10 to the power of 540. And enlightenment, peace is 600, 10 to the power of 600. And enlightenment is 10 to the power of 700. But what enlightenment means is you have become one with everything. That's what I said earlier. I am that I am. So that's where that station of the healing process, raising your vibration as you forgive yourself, you forgive everybody, and you go through some similar steps to the Catholic Church, but it's not like the 14 stations of Christ or anything like that.
That's why I said it's synonymous with the Catholic Church, because when you enter a Catholic church, you can see all the 14 stations of the cross.
Exactly.
Across it, and that's how you identify as the Catholic Church. Because over here, the Church of England and other churches, they don't have them up.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I want to read a prayer that you've put in this section. Is that okay? And it's the Keeper's Prayer. Am I okay to read it? So that everybody again can have
something. That's from Summit Light University. They've got a book. It's of Mary. It's about Mary, and this is a prayer that she uses to say the rosary in that book. Okay.
I wonder where you got it from. I'm just going to read this out, everybody. I'm on my iPad again. I'm going to read it out because I think it's a beautiful prayer. It's the Keeper's Daily Prayer. A flame is active. A flame is vital. A flame is eternal. I am a God. Flame of radiant love from the very heart of God in the great central sun, descending from the Master of life. I am charged now with beloved Helios and Vesta's supreme God consciousness and solar awareness. Pilgrims upon earth, I am walking daily the way of the ascended Master's victory that leads to my eternal freedom by the power of the sacred fire. This day and always continually made manifest in my thoughts, feelings, and immediate awareness, transcending and transmuting all the elements of earth within my 4 lower bodies, and freeing me by the power of the sacred fire from those misqualified foci of energy within my being. It's an interesting prayer, isn't it?
It is. And I just realized just now, it's confirming what I told you about the 7 stations, which were inspired to me.
That's why I read it out.
You're going up the vibration. You're being lifted up, you see, as you leave the baggage behind.
That's why I read it out, because I thought there's a link here.
Great.
And I thought it's quite significant. So I wanted to bring it in so that people get a flavor of what you and your book are about.
Perfect, perfect, perfect.
I want to just go on a little bit further because the whole idea, Vincent, of the podcast is to give people a flavour of you and the book. It's not to give everything away. It's just to a
Yes, of course,
tantalising
of course.
little look, a peek behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I like chapter 8.
Mm.
Why? Because this is headed up the greatest prayers, everybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the greatest prayer, yeah.
Why did you choose to put here a reference to the Hawaiian prayer, Ho'opono Pono, and the Hindu word Namaste?
Well, there's two reasons. One is because in the 7 stations of the healing cross, you start with forgiveness. If you haven't forgiven and you don't love yourself and everybody, because nobody does anything to us. I am that I am. There are different versions of us because our essence, which is the Spirit of God, is identical. This is God experiencing creation. So when we perceive, now this is very important, this word, it's our perceptions based on our programming and our beliefs. We believe they do things that are bad, in inverted commas, to us. But they don't. All they are mirroring to us is things we have to, baggage we have to clear up in our lives, because Jesus teaches in the way of mastery, it takes one to know one.
I agree, totally. How does spiritualism play out in your own daily life? Does it have a more significant role now in your present day than, say, in the past? Or has it always had a dominant part of your life?
No, more recently, I'd say maybe in the last 30 or 35 years old, because I'm going to be 74 in another 5 or 6 weeks.
Don't look it.
Thank you. It started when I had a little crisis coming back from Venezuela to England.
Another one of his trips, everybody.
Yeah, my wife and daughters went ahead, and while I was alone, that's when I came across Christian metaphysical teaching. I knew there was something missing in my life because I aspired to be a transgender. I felt like a woman. I didn't know who to turn to. I couldn't turn to the church. I didn't turn to doctors, didn't mention anything to my family. And then I started thinking about spirituality, and I think, there's something wrong with it. So, well, spirit should be able to, help me to heal. And that's when I got into Christian metaphysical teaching, realizing that I'm spirit, that we come here to have different experiences, that even with our families, if we got issues, and this has happened in my life, we've got past issues that need to be resolved, we come together again, slightly different roles, but similar issues. And that has happened in this life because with my parents, we resolved issues for me and my ex-wife. So what happened is, from that time, I started things like meditation. The theme of both the books I've written is just be love, because our essence is love. And love is, as I said earlier, 10 to the 500. Okay. So when you forgive yourself, forgive everybody, and love yourself, then you can love others in the same measure that you love yourself. That's the Lord's Prayer.
That's an interesting point. What would the listeners and viewers, Vincent, gain from picking up your book and reading it? Who's it aimed at? What message are you trying to get across in this book?
Okay, it's the first thing is that people should love themselves, forgive themselves for everything, because everything that's happened has been chosen by them. Even their parents, every event is co-created between all the I ams that God is. See, he said, I am that I am. So all the I ams is God interacting, and we learn things. They're not right or wrong. Jesus teaches that in the way of mastery. There's no right or wrong. They're just experiences. What we're living in this world is a dream. Now, this is difficult for people to accept.
Mm.
But when you realize that, you're more neutral about your reactions, your perceptions, and you have a happier life. When you learn to love yourself and you go up the scale, as Dr. David Hawkins proved in his life, he was declared terminally ill 3 times. He raised his vibration above joy and got healed, once within hours of supposedly dying, according to
Okay.
the allopathic medicine.
You certainly have
So
got,
this is the
you
secret.
come from a very different angle, don't you, when it comes to spiritualism and Christianity, don't you?
It's down to earth spiritualism, because it's, living in the world and enjoying it, no matter what. It's difficult. It's difficult sometimes because we've been programmed differently.
Vincent, I'm going to ask you a very sensitive question here, and I
Yes,
think
please
it's
do.
poignant, and we've talked about this, so you're happy to answer it.
Yes, yes.
You recently identified yourself as transgender.
Yes.
Was this a difficult moment in your life, or was this something that had been simmering away in your thoughts, ideology for a while? I mean, I can only imagine it was a very profound moment in your life. Now, some people would argue or raise here and say that transgender is somewhat at odds with the Lord's teachings.
Mm.
But before I want to answer it or countenance that statement, I want to say to people, well, I'm going to refer you to chapter 8 in St. John's Gospel, chapter 8, verses 3 to 7. And it's about the story of the adulterous woman who was found out, and the punishment in those days was to be stoned.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the scribes and the Pharisees met with Jesus, and they knew what the answer was, what he should say, but they didn't expect this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's here the scribes and the Pharisees, they taunt Jesus with the adulterous woman who they see should be stoned in public for what she's done.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't ready for his reply. He replies, you know where I'm coming from, don't you?
Yes, yes.
He replies, let he that is without sin amongst you, let him first cast the stone.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about your transgender bit here and to countenance what some people might argue as, well, this is totally at odds with the Lord's teachings?
Well,
Cast
I
the
will
stone.
give a very brief perspective of what's happened, what happened with me, and I'll add something else
Please do.
add to what John's gospel. I felt like this since I was 11 years old. I never told anybody about it. I was trying to sort things out on my own. When I came to Australia, a number of incidents, happened. I stopped the process, and I thought it was divine intervention. But I started it again because after a month and a half after coming here, I was feeling so bad. I went to see a doctor, and he sent me to a doctor who specialized in transvestites and transgenders. Saw a psychiatrist. I saw public hospital doctors. All of them couldn't understand my feelings because I had a wife and 2 daughters. And they finally approved me for gender reassignment, but I didn't do it until 2 years ago because I was pleasing my family. I had 2 daughters who were in high school. One was going to uni. And then after, it's not to interfere with their careers, then for my wife, and then we divorced, and still accommodating them, to keep the contact. I was codependent until about 2 years ago. I finally decided, no, I got to love myself enough to do what's good for me. And it was freedom. And there was an incredible synchronicities which I can share with your listeners. I went to India where I didn't know anybody, to a city I didn't know. I was a bit apprehensive, but the clinic was perfect. The staff were perfect. Even the cleaners were kind and everything. The doctors were excellent. And to put a cherry on the cake, on my flight back, I was upgraded from economy to business.
So you said you were going to add on a bit, to my
yes,
Gospel of St.
yeah.
John bit.
A lot of people have the perception that God, let's put it this way, the Father or God doesn't approve. Now, in a series of books called The Trojan Horse, which I started reading in Venezuela, there's nine books in the series. It's about the US Air Force making a time machine and sending a chap from the military and the Air Force to Palestine during the week of the Passion. They were all at all key events. And they recorded this with modern technology. The only mandate was you can't interfere because you'll change history. So in one of those instances, there was a gay Jew, very rich, who invited them to a party. So they went to the party, and on the way home, one of the followers or apostles, I don't know if it was an apostle, he said to Jesus, Rabbi, is what that man doing right? And Jesus' answer was brilliant. Would the Father make a mistake? Who created you? You're God's image and likeness. You cannot sin. You're just having experiences, and the Father's having them through you. You reap what you sow.
You reap what you sow, indeed you do. I just want to say, Vincent, when I've looked at your book and, over the chats that we've had, as I said, everybody, this is a prayer book and it's got beautiful hymns in it. It's different version. And when you look at Vincent's life, it's been very varied. He's had his ups and his downs. He's had a very interesting life. But so for me, this is a book for those that have broad minds. And when it comes to prayer, or religious books, you need to have a very enlightened, broad mind here. But it is quite an eye-opening book on prayers and hymns coming from a different angle. So, I'm just going to say to people, so those of you who want a thought-provoking book, a curious book, a different book, a reflective book, then this is the book for you. And I simply say, go and have a read. Now, Vincent, where can people get your book?
Well, they can get it from Balboa Press. It's offered on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. But there's a whole marketing process going on. But those are the main ones that I remember. Balboa Press are the publishers. They're a subsidiary of Hay House. But may I add something to what you just said? For people who are looking for a different path where they will feel better with themselves and be able to forgive and love themselves, if they do the 7 stations of the healing cross and use the greatest prayer, and there's a hymn over there, "I'm Spirit, I am free," you can get healed. I'm not saying you will be healed. I'm saying you have the possibility to get healed. And you don't need to do any drastic things, with your life. Just have faith.
Vincent D'Souza, thank you very much for coming on and giving us a tantalizing behind-the-scenes peek at your book.
You're welcome.
So, as I say, everybody, at the end of my podcasts, I'm JT Crowley. Thanks for listening, watching, wherever you are in the world. Stay safe. Until next time.